What if your strongest sexual attraction is actually your deepest psychological wound? Think about that for a second. That woman, you can't stop thinking about the one who makes your heart race, your mind spiral, and your body ache isn't some cosmic connection. She might be a mirror, showing you the part of yourself you've never faced. You don't love her. You crave how she makes you feel. Incomplete, hungry, off balance, and deep down, that feels familiar. Because for a lot of men, attraction isn't about connection. It's about unfinished emotional business. We confuse chemistry with chaos. We call obsession passion. We think we're falling in love, but we're really just repeating our unresolved stories with a new face. That's the dark truth. You chase women who recreate the same emotional wounds you grew up with, hoping this time it'll end differently. But it doesn't. It never does. Unless you wake up. Unless you understand what's really pulling the strings behind your desire. And that's exactly what this video is going to expose. Female psychology, sexual projection, the anima trap, and the hidden patterns you must break before they break you. Let's get into it. Number 1. Attraction isn't chemistry, it's projection. What if I told you that the woman you're most obsessed with might not be the one? She might just be the most familiar form of pain. Let's break that down. Most men think intense attraction means compatibility. She walks into a room, you lock eyes, and something surges in your chest. It feels cosmic, inevitable, like fate. But here's the truth. That magnetic pull you feel, it's not love, it's memory. You're not attracted to her. You're attracted to what she represents, usually something unresolved in your past, something emotional, something unfinished. Let's look at Greg, 47, from Austin. Greg grew up with a mother who was warm one day, cold the next. Love always felt like something he had to earn. As an adult, he convinced himself that chapter was behind him. Then he met Vanessa, 44, classy, intelligent, stunning, but emotionally unavailable. One week she was all in. The next, radio silence. Greg couldn't stop thinking about her. Every time she pulled away, he leaned in harder. He didn't recognize it, but he wasn't chasing Vanessa. He was chasing validation from his past, hoping this time the story would end differently. That's not chemistry. That's projection. Carl Jung nailed it. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. This is exactly what projection does. It hijacks your clarity. You project your unmet needs onto her. You imagine who you want her to be, not who she really is. You might tell yourself she's your soulmate, that the emotional roller coaster is part of the ride. But the truth is, you're not in love, you're in a loop. And here's where it gets dangerous. You overlook red flags. You tolerate mixed signals. You misread anxiety as passion. You start chasing her approval instead of checking in with your values. Because your subconscious isn't seeking peace, it's seeking familiarity, even if it hurts. And when that familiarity looks like someone unpredictable, emotionally unavailable, or even emotionally unsafe, you mistake the chaos for a spark. You ever wonder why calm women feel boring to some men? It's because their nervous system only responds to emotional turbulence. That's what it's used to. And until you wake up to this pattern, you'll keep repeating it. You'll keep choosing women who feel like home, even if that home was full of confusion and pain. But once you become aware of it, everything changes. You stop chasing people who don't show up for you. You start asking better questions. Am I truly attracted to this person, or to the emotional pattern they trigger in me? You start choosing based on clarity, not compulsion. And that's when you begin to reclaim your power. Here's the truth. Real chemistry isn't anxious. It's calm. It feels solid, safe, grounded. It doesn't leave you guessing. It doesn't manipulate your attention. It just fits, not because it triggers your wounds, but because it respects your peace. Now, if anything I said just made your stomach turn a little good, that means something real just got hit. Drop a comment below. I felt this. Say it. Put it out there. That's how it starts. And stick around, because what you'll learn next might change how you see every woman you've ever desired. Number 2. The anima seduction, when your shadow chooses for you. There's a reason some women seem to haunt you, even when they're no longer in your life. It's not because they were special. It's because they activated something deep, unconscious, and often dark. Carl Jung called it the anima, the inner feminine image that lives inside every man. This anima is shaped by your experiences, wounds, projections, fantasies, and most of all, your emotional history with women. So when you meet a woman in real life who resembles that internal image even just a little, your psyche lights up. It's not about her, it's about what she represents to your shadow. She becomes the face of your longing, your pain, your shame, your mother wound, your unspoken desires. You don't fall in love with her. You fall into a trance pulled by a force you can't explain, addicted to the fantasy of finally being complete. Nay, this is the anima seduction, when your shadow chooses for you, not your conscious self. And Stoicism warns about this. Epictetus said, "When we are upset by external things, it's not because of the things themselves, but our judgment about them." That includes people, especially the ones who stir you up the most. If a woman's presence makes you lose yourself, question your worth, obsess over her every move, or spiral when she pulls away, that's not love. That's your anima running wild. This projection is powerful. She feels magnetic, irresistible. You think you're choosing her, but what's really happening is this. You're unconsciously trying to merge with the part of yourself you've neglected, buried, or rejected. But here's the trap. The anima isn't interested in reality. She thrives in fantasy, distance, and longing. She isn't someone you build with, she's someone you chase. And that chase will consume you. You'll sacrifice your logic, ignore your needs, excuse red flags, and keep coming back even when every part of you knows you should walk away. The Stoics teach us that freedom comes not from giving in to passion, but from mastering it. Seneca said, "No man is free who is a slave to his passions." This includes being enslaved to a woman who only exists inside your mind, not in the real world. So what do? You slow down. You pause the obsession. You ask yourself, what does this woman represent to me emotionally? What part of me is she waking up? Why does this feel so big, so intense, so irrational? These aren't easy questions, but they're the only way to separate real connection from psychological seduction, because the anima will keep showing up again and again, wearing different faces, different names, different stories, until you recognize her, and instead of chasing her, you integrate her. That's when things shift. You stop confusing emotional intensity with destiny. You stop choosing women who feel like your wound. You stop giving your power away just to feel temporarily seen. Now, if you've ever felt trapped in a fantasy you couldn't escape, comment below. I've been there, and mean it. That honesty is where your awareness begins. Stick with me. The next insight will hit closer to the heart than you expect, and once it does, things you thought were love might look completely different. Number 3. Why you crave the one who hurts you. Here's something most men will never admit out loud. Sometimes the woman who makes you feel the most alive is also the one who makes you feel the most miserable. You know she's inconsistent. You know she plays games. You know her attention feels more like a test than a gift. But you can't let her go. Not because you don't know better, but because something deeper is hooked. Let's talk about Tyler, 52, from Denver. He's smart, successful, respected. But when it comes to Emily, 39, his on-again, off-again partner, he becomes someone else entirely. She cancels plans last minute, flirts with other men in front of him, goes silent for days, then shows back up with a soft apology, a sweet smile, and just enough charm to keep him hanging. And Tyler, he keeps taking her back, over and over. It's not because he's weak. It's because his nervous system has learned to associate emotional pain with emotional worth. This is more common than you think. When love was unpredictable in childhood, when affection was earned, instead of given, your brain wires itself to expect inconsistency. So when you meet someone who triggers that same emotional chaos, you don't run, you chase, because that chaos feels like home. The psychological term, intermittent reinforcement, the most addictive reward pattern known to the brain. When someone gives you validation sporadically, your system goes into survival mode. You become obsessed with figuring out how to win it again. And this isn't about love, it's about control. Your subconscious believes, if I can finally get her to stay, it means I'm enough. But here's the brutal truth. The woman who hurts you the most often mirrors the one part of your past you've never healed. And every time you go back, you're not reconnecting with her. You're re-entering the loop that says, if I can just be better, more patient, more available, she'll finally choose me. But she never does, because she's not designed to heal you. She's designed to expose what you haven't healed yourself. Marcus Aurelius said, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. You can't change her behavior, but you can take your power back by recognizing the trap and walking away from it. Because the truth is, no woman worth having will keep you guessing. She won't feed your wounds to keep your attention. She won't disappear so she can feel more wanted. She will show up, and you'll feel peace, not confusion. Now, if you've been stuck in this loop, comment below. I've broken free. Say it. Let it land. It might be the first time you've owned it. And don't blink. What's coming next might just explain why you keep drawing in these women and how to finally stop. Number 4. Trauma bonding disguised as passion. Let's be honest, some of the strongest feelings you've ever had for a woman didn't feel healthy. They felt obsessive, all-consuming, almost painful. But in the middle of it, your brain said, this must be love. That's not love. That's a trauma bond wearing passion as a mask. Here's what most men don't realize. When your nervous system is wired to expect inconsistency, when you've grown up equating affection with anxiety, you won't chase women who are good for you. You'll chase women who feel familiar. And sometimes, familiar means chaotic. A trauma bond is what forms when emotional pain gets mixed up with emotional connection. She hurts you. She disappears. She comes back with just enough sweetness to hook you again. And your brain rewards you for surviving the cycle. You confuse relief for love. Think about that. When she returns after ignoring you, the dopamine hit feels so intense, like you just won something valuable. But in reality, you didn't gain love. You just got a break from emotional suffering. That's how trauma bonding traps you. The highs are euphoric because the lows are brutal. The relationship feels intense, intoxicating, unforgettable. But it's not because she's your soulmate. It's because she keeps opening an old wound that never healed. The Stoics warned us about this pattern thousands of years ago. Marcus Aurelius said, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Yet in a trauma bond, you give that power away. You let someone else control your peace. You let someone else's inconsistency define your self-worth. And here's the dangerous part. Because of the chemistry involved, cortisol, dopamine, adrenaline, your body mistakes the emotional roller coaster for real depth. You'll start saying things like, she's complicated. No one gets me like she does. We have a strong connection. But look closer. That connection only shows up after a fight, after she withholds affection, after she reappears just when you're about to move on. She's not bonding with you, she's binding you to the cycle. You might think you're the one choosing her, but your unresolved trauma is doing the choosing for you. Seneca once wrote, he suffers more than necessary who suffers before it is necessary. And when you stay in trauma bonds, you suffer long after the relationship stops serving you. So how do you break free? You don't need to become emotionless. You don't need to block love. But you do need to get brutally honest with yourself. Does this woman make me feel safe? Or does she keep me guessing? Am I chasing her? Or am I chasing relief from the pain she causes? Once you start asking the right questions, the illusion cracks. You realize real passion doesn't have to feel like survival. It doesn't have to drain you. It doesn't keep you up at night wondering where you stand. Real connection is steady, not dramatic. It brings peace, not panic. It grows over time. It doesn't manipulate you into staying. And the second you stop confusing trauma with love, you start reclaiming your dignity as a man. Now, if you've ever mistaken emotional chaos for passion and stayed longer than you should have, comment below. I've lived this. Just those 3 words. Own your experience. Because what's coming next will shift the way you see attention, validation, and the power of walking away. Number 5. She's not the one. She's your wound in disguise. There's a moment every man needs to face. That moment when you realize the woman who electrifies your world, who makes your heart race and your chest ache when she pulls away, she's not your soulmate. She's your wound, wearing a beautiful disguise. Let's talk about Michael, 46, from Arizona. Michael had his life together. Business owner, divorced, no kids. He thought he had grown past all the emotional chaos of his 20s. Then he met Samantha, 41. She was magnetic. The way she looked at him made him feel like the center of the universe. And that feeling? Addictive. But within weeks, the pattern began. Samantha would go hot and cold, text for hours one day, disappear the next, sleep over on Saturday night, and ghost him until Wednesday. Michael told himself, she's just busy. She's testing me. If I just stay calm, she'll come around. But this wasn't patience, it was self-abandonment. Because deep down, Michael wasn't in love with Samantha. He was in love with the chase, with the approval, with the illusion of finally being chosen. The Stoics had a word for this: pathos, emotional suffering created by mistaken judgments. Epictetus said, when someone irritates you, it is your own response that is the problem. Michael wasn't really irritated with Samantha. He was irritated with how familiar her behavior felt, because when he was a child, his mother had done the same. Emotionally unavailable, inconsistent affection, conditional love. Back then, Michael learned that to be worthy of love, he had to work for it, prove himself, wait it out. Samantha wasn't the one. She was a perfect replica of his unresolved pain. And this is the truth most men avoid. When you haven't healed, your wound becomes your type. You're not drawn to peace. You're drawn to intensity. You're not looking for love. You're trying to rewrite your past. So many men confuse familiar pain with passion. They think, no one else makes me feel this way. That's the problem. She makes you feel the same way your deepest hurt once did, and your body calls it home. This is why you stay, why you justify, why you blame yourself for her distance. Because if you can just fix it, if you can finally win her over, maybe you'll prove that you're worthy now, even if you weren't then. But this game has no winner, only cycles. Michael finally hit his breaking point on a quiet Thursday night. She cancelled on him for the 3rd time in 2 weeks. No explanation, just silence. He looked at his phone, then at himself in the mirror, and it hit him. This wasn't about her anymore. This was about who he became every time she disappeared. Not a man, not grounded, but a scared little boy hoping someone would finally stay. So he stopped. He stopped chasing. He stopped trying to impress her. He stopped mistaking anxiety for love. And when he did, something shifted. He didn't feel powerful, not right away. He felt grief, anger, shame, but he also felt free. Because walking away from the woman who mirrored his wound was the first time he chose himself. So here's the question for you. Is she really special, or is she just emotionally unavailable in the same way someone from your past once was? Does she love you, or does she trigger the part of you that's still unhealed? Real connection doesn't leave you guessing. Real love doesn't manipulate your nervous system, and a real woman will never make you beg for clarity. Now, if you've ever looked back and realized she wasn't the one, she was just your wound with lipstick, comment below. I've seen the truth. Say it, write it, claim it, because awareness is the first step to choosing better. And don't go anywhere. What's coming next will shift how you see your own power and how women feel it, even in your silence. Number 6. Why your type is repeating your past. Have you ever looked at your relationship history and asked, why do I keep choosing the same kind of woman? Different faces, different names, same emotional outcome. You either feel unseen, unappreciated, or emotionally exhausted. And the worst part, you knew it from the beginning. There were red flags, gut feelings, moments when your body whispered, this isn't safe, but you ignored it because something about her pulled you in. That pull, that chemistry wasn't a sign she was the one. It was your past calling you back into the same emotional loop. Here's a brutal truth. Your type isn't always a preference. It's often a program. We tend to be drawn to what's familiar, not what's healthy. And what's familiar usually traces back to childhood, especially your earliest emotional blueprint of love and safety. If your blueprint was chaotic, inconsistent, or conditional, guess what you'll find attractive? People who replicate that same pattern. And here's the kicker. You won't see it right away. Because your nervous system isn't logical. It's trained. When someone feels exciting, challenging, or mysterious, you might tell yourself it's passion, but it could just be emotional déjà vu, a repetition of the very wounds you never healed. The Stoics warned us about unconscious pattern repetition. Seneca once wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." And nothing activates the imagination like desire rooted in pain. You imagine she's different. You imagine you'll finally get it right. You imagine this one will love you in a way no one ever has. But behind that imagination is a wound trying to find closure. That's why you overlook basic incompatibilities. That's why you justify disrespect. That's why you chase potential instead of presence. Your type isn't about her hair, her eyes, her body. It's about the emotional rhythm she brings, one that matches your early experience of love, even if that love came with pain. This isn't your fault, but it is your responsibility to see it. Until you do, your type will continue to be a trap, a loop, a test. And here's something you need to hear. You don't heal by finding the perfect woman. You heal by realizing you've been attracted to emotional echoes, not real connection. The moment you stop chasing the familiar is the moment you start choosing differently. And when you start choosing differently, something strange happens. Women who once felt boring suddenly feel calm. Peace starts to feel safe instead of dull. And that high anxiety rush you once called chemistry, you'll see it for what it really is: instability wearing perfume. There's power in noticing the pattern, because awareness gives you choice, and choice gives you freedom. As Marcus Aurelius said, the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. If your thoughts keep returning to pain, your soul will attract it. But if your thoughts align with strength, clarity, and purpose, you'll attract what aligns with your healed self, not your hurt one. So, ask yourself honestly, does my type reflect who I want to be with, or who I used to chase approval from? One comes from self-worth, the other from self-abandonment. And when you finally break that cycle, everything changes, not just in relationships, but in how you carry yourself as a man. Now, if this hit a nerve, if you've seen yourself chasing patterns and not people, comment below. I've broken the cycle. And keep watching, because what I'm about to show you next will flip the way you think about power in attraction. Number 7. The women who weaponize your anima. Some women know exactly what they're doing. They can read you in seconds. Not just what you say, but what you feel. They know how to speak to your wounds, mirror your dreams, and wrap themselves around the version of woman you've been longing for since you were too young to explain it. And that's where it gets dangerous. Let's talk about Derek, 42, from Michigan. He was divorced for 2 years, working in real estate, trying to rebuild his confidence. That's when he met Eva, 37, a yoga instructor with a mysterious vibe, deep eyes, and a voice like silk. She told him things no one ever had, that she saw his potential, that he was powerful, that he was safe to open up. Derek, usually guarded, dropped everything. Emotional walls gone. He felt like he could finally breathe. But within 2 months, things turned dark. Suddenly, Eva began withholding, praising him one day, ignoring him the next. She'd say, "You're not the man I thought you were," whenever he set a boundary. And somehow, Derek always felt like it was his fault. This is what happens when a woman learns how to speak to your anima, the unconscious feminine image within you. Carl Jung believed that every man carries an internal blueprint of the ideal woman. Not the real one, but the imagined one formed through childhood, emotional experiences, unmet needs, and even rejection. Some women, consciously or not, recognize that blueprint in you, and they become it. They mimic softness, admiration, mystery. They say the exact things your inner boy longs to hear. And just when you let them in, they use that intimacy as leverage. This is not connection. This is manipulation dressed as desire. The Stoics warned against putting your emotions in someone else's hands. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." But when your anima is being played like a piano, you lose that power. You start reacting, not responding. You try to earn back the affection you were promised. That's when she has control. She dangles intimacy, withholds approval, creates drama only to be the one who soothes it. She becomes your storm and your shelter, and you become dependent. This isn't always malicious, but it is damaging, because instead of healing your anima, it fractures it even more. You start to believe that love must come with anxiety. That emotional intensity is the price you pay for attraction. That if you just become enough, she'll go back to being who she was at the beginning. But here's the truth. That version of her was never real. It was a mask shaped by your emotional blueprints, and she wore it like a second skin. Derek finally realized it the night Eva accused him of being closed off because he didn't answer her text during a work meeting. He felt the tension, the fear of abandonment rising. But this time, he didn't fold. He remembered how he used to feel in his marriage, grounded, respected, real. So he stopped apologizing for having a boundary. And when she pulled away, he didn't chase, because he finally saw it. She wasn't in love with him. She was in love with the control she had when he projected his anima onto her. And walking away was the most masculine move he had made in years. So ask yourself, is she really that special? Or is she just perfectly aligned with the version of love you never received? A woman who weaponizes your anima isn't giving you love. She's giving you a dream only to take it away when you start waking up. And brother, it's time to wake up. If you've ever fallen for someone who seemed perfect until she used that illusion against you, comment below. I've been played, because calling it out is the first step to reclaiming your power. And don't blink what's coming next. It'll reveal the real reason some women feel addictive, even when they treat you like an option. Number 8. Why emotional chaos feels like love. Let's get real. There's a reason so many men confuse anxiety with attraction. You know the feeling. Your heart races when she texts you out of the blue. You feel sick when she goes silent. You analyze every word she says, trying to decode what she really means. And somehow, this chaos feels like passion. But here's the truth. That's not love. That's emotional addiction. Most men grew up without being taught how to recognize healthy intimacy. So when something doesn't feel chaotic, we call it boring. But when it does feel unstable, intense, unpredictable, we think it must be powerful. It's not. It's just familiar. When your nervous system has been wired to associate love with emotional highs and lows, you start to crave the roller coaster. You chase the spike of dopamine when she finally calls back. You mistake relief for intimacy, and you start to believe that feeling anxious means you care. Let's stop that lie right now. Marcus Aurelius said, "The things you think about determine the quality of your mind. And if all you think about is whether she'll ghost you or want you back, then your mind isn't focused on love, it's focused on survival." Because that's what emotional chaos does, it triggers your survival brain. The part of you that believes, if I can just make this work, I'll finally be enough. That isn't connection, that's conditioning. And it's not your fault. You may have learned early on that affection came in waves. Sometimes you were seen, sometimes you were ignored. So you internalized the message, love must be earned, not received. Fast forward to adulthood, and now you're drawn to women who recreate that same emotional inconsistency. One day, she's warm. The next, she's distant. And instead of walking away, you try harder. You perform. You overthink. You overgive. Not because you love her, but because you're trying to solve the emotional riddle inside yourself. This is where it gets dangerous, because that chaos becomes your compass. You start to trust instability more than you trust peace. You overlook calm, grounded women because they don't spike your adrenaline. And you convince yourself that something must be wrong with you if you don't feel butterflies. But those butterflies, they're not romance, they're warning signs. They're your nervous system remembering past trauma and calling it home. Love shouldn't feel like walking on eggshells. It shouldn't feel like you're constantly being tested. It shouldn't feel like you have to earn her softness after enduring her silence. True love feels safe. It feels calm. It feels stable, even when life isn't. And if you're not used to that, it might feel awkward at first. But that's only because you're learning what love really is, not what your past told you it had to be. Stoicism teaches us to anchor ourselves in what we can control: our thoughts, our choices, our values. Epictetus said, "It is not things themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about them." If your opinion is that love must hurt, then you'll keep choosing pain and calling it fate. But if your new opinion is that love can feel like peace, you'll begin to rewire what you're drawn to. That's where freedom begins. Not in getting her back, not in proving your worth, but in realizing you never had to perform for real love in the first place. If emotional chaos has ever tricked you into believing it was love, comment below, "I choose peace." Because that one sentence can begin to rewrite your story. And stay with me, because in the next part, you'll understand why the very women you crave are often the mirror of your past pain. Number 9. The calm ones feel boring. That's the trap. Let's be honest. How many times have you met a woman who was kind, emotionally stable, and genuine, and thought, "She's nice, but I'm just not feeling it"? You didn't say it out loud, but deep down, it felt flat. No spark, no tension. You told yourself she wasn't your type. But here's what really happened. Your nervous system wasn't activated, because she wasn't triggering your trauma. Let me tell you about Mark, 38, from Colorado. He works in finance, divorced 5 years ago, and had a string of chaotic relationships. Then he met Rachel, 36, a nurse, soft-spoken, emotionally mature. No games. She showed up when she said she would. She listened, laughed at his jokes, didn't play hot and cold, and after 3 dates, Mark ghosted her. Why? Because it felt too easy, too calm, too safe. He told a friend, "I don't know, man. She's just boring." But the truth is, Rachel wasn't boring. She just didn't trigger the part of him that confused instability with passion. When you're used to emotional chaos, peace feels awkward. It feels foreign. Sometimes it even feels suspicious. Because if love has always been unpredictable, then someone who's consistent might make you wonder, what's the catch? That's the trap. You sabotage what's real because you're still wired to chase what's familiar. The Stoics taught us that what feels good in the moment isn't always good for our nature. Seneca wrote, "We are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more in imagination than in reality." This fear of boring love, it's not real. It's your imagination telling you that drama means depth, that the butterfly in the stomach feeling is chemistry when in reality it might just be anxiety wearing perfume. Mark eventually realized it. After another intense fling with a woman who gave him the highs and lows, he found himself drained, questioning his worth again. He reached out to Rachel. She was kind, but she'd moved on. That's when it hit him. He didn't miss the chaos. He missed the clarity she brought, the calm he hadn't been ready to receive. We all crave intensity, but if the price of that intensity is your peace, your confidence, and your self-respect, it's not love. It's addiction. Real connection might not spike your adrenaline. It doesn't play mind games. It doesn't leave you guessing. But here's the twist. Once you heal, that calm woman who used to feel boring, she becomes magnetic. Because now you recognize what she offers. Safety, support, stability is what you've needed all along. She doesn't trigger your trauma. She respects your boundaries. She makes love feel like a sanctuary, not a battlefield. That's not boring. That's rare. So the next time you feel like walking away from someone simply because it's too easy, ask yourself, are you truly uninterested or just unfamiliar with peace? Because your ability to receive calm love is a reflection of how far you've come as a man. And when you stop chasing chaos, you don't just attract better women. You become a better version of yourself. If you've ever mistaken peace for boredom, comment below. I choose calm. Because peace isn't the absence of love. It's the foundation of it. And what I'll share with you next will reveal how this shift rewires not only your relationships, but your entire sense of masculine identity. Number 10. Real love begins with healing, not chasing. Let's strip this down to the bone. The moment you stop chasing, that's when everything starts to shift. Not just your relationships, but your identity as a man. Because what you've been calling love for most of your life wasn't actually love. It was a search for validation, a desperate attempt to feel worthy through someone else's attention. You weren't falling in love, you were falling into patterns. And you chased, not because she was special, but because deep down, you didn't believe you were. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Until you heal the parts of you that believe love has to be earned through performance, pursuit, or pain, you'll keep getting pulled back into the same cycles. Same type, different name. Healing breaks that loop. It's not loud. It's not glamorous. It's not something you post on social media. It's the quiet decision to no longer betray yourself just to be chosen. It's when you stop rehearsing texts to sound more desirable. It's when you stop stalking her online hoping for a sign. It's when you stop sacrificing your peace for the thrill of maybe. And in that silence, in that stillness, you finally start to hear yourself. That's the man she could never fully reach. The one hidden behind effort, behind pleasing, behind trying to be enough. The Stoics didn't chase. They didn't need to. They understood that strength comes from alignment with nature, and nature doesn't force. Epictetus said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. Not what she wants you to be, not what society praises, but what you would be by your own values." Healing means choosing your own definition of manhood, not one shaped by rejection, not one shaped by childhood wounds, but one shaped by clarity. When you stop chasing, you begin seeing. You see how much you gave to women who didn't ask for it or didn't deserve it. You see how many times you ignored red flags just because she was beautiful or broken. You see how your worth was never supposed to hinge on whether someone loved you back. That's not strength, that's survival. And you're done surviving, because a healed man doesn't chase. He invites. He doesn't perform. He embodies. He doesn't prove his worth. He knows it. That's when real love shows up, not as a prize for suffering, but as a reflection of the peace you've built inside yourself. She no longer becomes your oxygen. She becomes a witness to your wholeness. And if she stays, she stays. If she goes, she goes. You no longer collapse either way. That's power. But it only begins when you stop running after women and start walking toward yourself. So ask yourself, are you ready to stop chasing? Are you ready to let go of the story that love has to be painful to be real? Because love, real love, doesn't demand you bleed. It meets you in the light of your healing, not in the shadows of your desperation. And once you taste that kind of love, you'll never go back to the chase. So if any part of this video hits something deep inside you, good. That means you're waking up. You're starting to see that what you've called love was often just a pattern, a trap, a loop you didn't even realize you were stuck in. But now you've got clarity. You've seen the shadows for what they are. And more importantly, you've started to remember who the hell you are. Not a man who chases. Not a man who begs, but a man who chooses, who heals, who leads with presence, not desperation. This journey isn't easy, but it's real. And if you've made it to this point, you're not the same man who started this video. So, if you want more truth like this, more psychology, more Stoic strategy, and more no BS insight that actually helps you level up, make sure to subscribe to the channel right now. It tells me you're serious. It tells me you're here to grow. And I'll make sure to show up with value every single day. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.